want to start today with a quote from a guy named Phil Edwards. He says these words. He says, there is a real need in all of us for controlled danger. That is, a need for activity that puts us on the edge of life. There are uncounted millions of people who go through life without any sort of real, vibrant kick. Now, Phil Edwards wasn't a great philosopher. He wasn't a poet. He wasn't a book writer. Phil Edwards was a world champion surfer who in July of 1966 made the cover of Sports Illustrated. Way back, he was born in Oceanside, California, and was credited to be one of the first people to ride one of the huge waves and the Bonsai Pipeline on the North Shore of Hawaii. And I know Phil Edwards was talking about a physical challenge, but today I wanted to look, as we talk about having those aha moments in our faith, what if his challenge could not be so much physical as it is spiritual for us? I wonder what would happen if we had some kind of spiritual revolution that put us on the edge of our lives, because I don't want to be, as he put it, one of those uncounted millions who go through life spiritually without any sort of vibrant kick. Last week, we started a series we're calling Aha. Aha is just those moments when a light should come on. It's those moments when you look and you think, I didn't get it, but now I do get it. It's those moments when you think, I didn't see it, but aha, now I do see it. And today we're going to look at an event in the life of Jesus. And this event should have been, and I think did become, an aha moment to Peter, James, and John, who witnessed the event. And I've got to tell you on the front end, I get excited when I talk about this story. There's just certain stories that hit me in different ways, and this one gets me excited. And sometimes when I get excited, I get loud, and so you just have to forgive me of that. And sometimes I just get going. So I hope you get as excited as I get excited. But if you don't, well, aha, that'll just be like. So we'll start out. Like other aha moments that happen in life, this aha moment happens on the mountaintop. Jesus is there. 3 of his disciples are there. Peter, James, and John. Now, James and John are brothers, so this is not the James that's the half-brother of Jesus. This is the James that's the full brother of John, who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So those 3 disciples are there. 2 dead guys show up to this event, Moses and Elijah. And then there's this aha moment. There's this voice that nobody knows where it's coming from, and nobody knows who said it initially, but they're going to find out. And it comes from seemingly nowhere. And all of this happens. And if you have been a student of Scripture for a long time, you may know this passage as the Transfiguration of Jesus. If you haven't been, or if you're new to church here, don't worry about it. We're going to kind of talk about it as we go through it. But before we dive in, I should let you know something. There are 2 perspectives on the story. There is the perspective from Matthew, because he writes about it, and then there's the perspective from Luke, because Luke writes about it as well. And one of the things you need to know is that neither Matthew nor Luke were up on the mountain with Peter, James, and John. So they're getting it. They are hearing Peter, James, and John tell the story, and then they're writing about it in the book that was recorded for us. Matthew and Luke were perfect people to do that, because both of those people were friends with Peter, James, and John. And when Matthew and Luke write their story, they write their story in much the same way that husbands and wives will tell a story together. I don't know, it may be boyfriend or girlfriend if you can't relate, or maybe even a best friend to best friend. Have you ever you've been there with somebody and they tell you a story, and then you want to tell your kids the story, but you keep butting in on each other because you think they left out something. Oh, you should have told this, you should have told this. Well, that happens in this story. And maybe it was a little bit like a couple of years ago. Linda was showing me this video. I had gotten home and she said, I got this video. And back then, Linda was forever before she got an iPhone, and she just had this little bitty, I think almost like flip phone, but it wasn't a flip phone. It had a little bitty screen, and because I'm old, I had to put my glasses out just to be able to see this video. She was so excited about it, and she shows it to me. I've got my glasses and I'm looking, and Eli was on there, and he was just a little over 1 at the time. And he says something in there, and then the video just cuts off, and Linda's looking at me like, did you hear it? Did you hear it? And I'm like, is that the shirt we bought him at Christmas? Is that what he was wearing like in that video? And then it was like, no, they're not talking about the shirt. That's not, he said something, Tom, he put his first sentence together. He put words and he put them in a sentence and it made sense. And I had to listen to it again. And I said, hey, that's good. But like, isn't that the shirt we got him at Christmas? And she was like, you just missed it. Well, I think there's a moment like that happens with Matthew and Luke in this story, because Matthew tells the story and Luke tells the story. Matthew leaves something out that Luke is going to put in, and that's why we're going to look at both of their perspectives on this story. And that happens a lot of times when you go through the Gospels, and you can read the same story that maybe Mark will write about, or that maybe Luke will write about, and maybe the other one tells something different. And they're not contradictory. It's just added facts in there where one sees something that impacts them maybe a little bit differently than the other sees them. So I'm going to start with Matthew's version. And then we'll skip over to Luke's version to get the whole picture, because in this, I think that Matthew was the one, like me, who saw the shirt in the story, and Luke is the one who heard the sentence. So starting in Matthew chapter 17, 6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the two brothers, James and John, and led them up on a high mountain to be alone. Now, to get this into context, you've got to kind of know a little bit about what's happening in the world. Jesus has been out there. He's been teaching. He's been healing. There are hundreds, literally thousands of people following him. The New Testament writers say that Jesus can't go anywhere at this time without a mob of people getting around him. And within all of the disciples' mind, in the minds of Matthew and Peter and James and John, they have to be thinking, they have to be saying, well, this is Jesus' time. Jesus, do you see this mob? Do you see all these people who are here? They are going to take you. They are going to make you a king. We are going to throw out Rome. I'm going to sit at your right. I'm going to sit at your left in this new kingdom that you've got coming. And Jesus knows that they're thinking of all of these things. So in the chapter right before this, chapter 16, it says that Jesus sat down and began to tell them about how he was going to be led into the city, how he was going to be handed over to the authorities, he was going to be tried, he was going to be convicted, and that he would die, but on the third day he would rise again. And that whole third day thing, I just think went right over their head. The minute he said, I'm going to die. Well, 6 days after they've been thinking about that, 6 days after, like, they're on top of the world, they're literally on top, or figuratively on top of a mountain, like God's got this thing and we're going to do it and we're going to get out of here. 6 days after he kind of puts a little moment in there that it's not going to go down exactly the way you're thinking it's going to go down. 6 days later, he takes 3 of them who are going to be leaders in this new movement, Peter, James, and John, and he leads them up on the mountain. Continuing in verse 2, as the men, Peter, James, and John, watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed so that his face shone like the sun and his clothes became as white as light. And all of a sudden, they are getting a glimpse of what Moses got a glimpse of way back in the Old Testament. You remember when Moses said, God, I just want to see you. And God said, you can't see my face, Moses, but I'll pass by you. I'll let you see my back as I pass by. And when Moses came down from the mountain, I mean, he glowed. He glowed from the presence of God. And now here is God in the flesh, in Jesus. And Peter and them look and they say, he is glowing. Verse 3, suddenly Moses and Elijah appeared. Now that's a big deal in this story. That's a big deal because Moses and Elijah haven't been on the earth in a long, long time. Can you say like 5,000 years since anybody's kind of heard of Moses and Elijah? And from a human perspective, they are gone. One is dead and the other, well, they're not really sure exactly what happened to him because scripture just says that he was taken. And they know Moses and Elijah because Moses and Elijah have been a central part of their faith since they were little kids. Moses was all about what was, and that's going to come into play next week. Moses was about the law. Moses was about the prophets, but he died. God buried him on the mountain. He was the past, dead, gone, and buried, but here he was in the present. Can you imagine what that would have been like for Peter, James, and John to have seen? the man that they had heard about all their life. And there he is right in front of them. And then there's Elijah. And they were looking, because they had been taught as kids, we are looking for one who is one day coming, and he's going to come in the spirit of Elijah. And if you remember the story of Elijah in the Old Testament, Elijah didn't even die. Elijah, God came down in like a whirlwind. It said a fire and chariots just took Elijah on to be with him. And all their lives they've been talking that one like Elijah, or maybe Elijah himself, is coming back. And now here's Peter, James, and John. They're looking, and there's Jesus, and he's there with Moses and with Elijah. And what are they doing? Rest of that verse says, and they began talking with Jesus. Talking with Jesus. I don't know if that excites you, but that excites me because I want to know what they're talking about. I mean, I am so nosy that when Linda is in the next room talking on the phone, sometimes I will like go to the door and like, is she talking about me? Is she talking about like our kids? Is she? Or we're in the car like, and you're not supposed to get your text, and like, I think after tomorrow it's illegal to even pick up your phone in the car. There's something going on about that. But she'll get a text or I'll get a text, and you know what she'll say? Who texted you? Well, they won't, because we're just nosy like that with each other. We like to know what's going on with each other. And if I'm Peter, James, and John, and all of a sudden Jesus, who I've been walking with for maybe a year, a couple of years or so, and he's there with a dead guy Moses and a taken guy Elijah, and they are talking, I want to know what he's talking about, don't you? I mean, I want to know what they're saying, because I'm going to be like this. That's where Matthew sees the shirt, because Matthew doesn't tell us what they're talking about. And I'm thinking, Matthew, what is wrong with you? But if you skip over to Luke like we're going to do, Luke jumps in and he tells us what they are talking about. So skip over me with Luke chapter 9, verse 28, I think that says. About 8 days later, Jesus took Peter, John, and James up on a mountain to pray. Now, same scenario, same cast of characters, Peter, James, and John, Jesus. As he was praying, the appearance of his face was transformed and his clothes became dazzling white. Same verse there. Suddenly, two men, Moses and Elijah, appeared and began talking with Jesus. Same event that we just read from the Gospel of Matthew. And then Luke, verse 31, and they who? They Jesus, they Moses, they Elijah were glorious to see. Don't you know that was an understatement? Don't you know, if you have been taught about somebody since you were a little boy that you thought, you know, they died, God buried them a long time ago, they were taken, and now they are right in front of you, and Jesus is glowing like he's never glowed before. They were glorious to see. And they were speaking about his exodus from this world, which was about to be fulfilled in Jerusalem. And you're all looking at me like, so what's the big deal there? They're speaking about his exodus from the world, which was about to happen in Jerusalem. I got to stop there because I got to tell you, whether you realize it or not on first reading, that is an amazing verse. Okay, Moses is there, Elijah is there, Jesus is there on the mountain with them, and they are talking about the exodus, which is about to happen. The exodus, which was about to be fulfilled in Jerusalem. And I chose this translation because of the word exodus there. Here it's used with Jesus, but Moses is there. And if you remember, Moses' most spectacular moment in history is recorded for us in the book called what? Exodus, that's right. And from your Old Testament, where God set an entire nation of people free using Moses. He comes to Moses through a burning bush. He says, Moses, they are my people. They are not Pharaoh's people. They do not belong in bondage. They do not belong in slavery. They do not belong being oppressed. I want you to go back to the king, and I want you to tell him to let them go, because I'm about to set them free. Let's go get them. And Exodus means being set free. It means a departure, but it's more than just a going out, because I've heard some people say, well, Exodus means it's just where they went out of Egypt. Exodus is more than just going out. It's a getting out. It's a being liberated. It's a being set free. It's more than, well, Tom departed from the room. It's more than Israel departed from the land of Egypt. It holds the idea that there was this overwhelming force that was keeping them where they were, that was keeping them down, keeping them oppressed, keeping them in slavery. But all of a sudden, a force bigger than the force that existed came in. And that force said to this force, you are out of here because I'm about to set my people free. And that's what's happening when you look back through all of Scripture. That is their most epic moment in the world. I mean, Hollywood is still making movies about that moment. And then all of a sudden, God liberates them back then. And here it is now from that event, the parting of the Red Sea, all of that. It is 5,000, give or take a few thousand years, a few thousand years past the moment where Moses died. Moses, by the way, here's something that should encourage you, who never got to go into the promised land while he was here, but here he is speaking from the promised land, because anywhere where Jesus is the promised land. And all of a sudden, this Jesus is sending, talking with Moses. And in their mind, he never got to see the promised land, but it should have been encouraging to them because he's now standing right in the middle of the promised land and they see him. And it would have been every little Jewish boy's dream to have been there, because ever since they were little, their daddies at the Passover and at all other times would talk to them about what God did and how God, in a single blow, took out every oppressor that kept them down and kept them in slavery. And in a single moment in time, he wiped them all out and set them free. They would have known about it. And then all of a sudden, what we realize in this verse, that Exodus that Peter, James, and John knew so well, that Exodus that had been talked about for generations and generations, was just a preview. It was just a commercial. It was just a YouTube coming attraction of another Exodus that was about to take place, the likes of which the world had never seen. Because he says, I'm there talking to Moses, and if you're going to talk to Moses about an Exodus, you would think it would be the Exodus that they had heard about for years. But Luke says they weren't talking about the Exodus that had happened. They were talking about the Exodus that was about to happen. They were talking about what was going to go down in Jerusalem. The same thing that Jesus had tried to tell his disciples in Matthew chapter 16, which simply means this. All of those stories and all of those miracles and all of those plagues and frogs and lice and Nile River turning to blood and sacrifices and blood on the doorways and the archways and the Red Sea parting, all of that was just a preview. It was just a warm up to something that was about to happen. Linda and I, many years ago, Aaron and Alana, I think, were like kindergarten, and well, Alana would, I don't really know. They were little. I'll just say they were little. We went to Whistler, Canada. Well, we flew from Nashville to Seattle, and then we rented a car, and we went about 4 hours north into Whistler where we were going to ski, because I like to ski. And the kids liked it. Well, we got there. We started on our way. We looked like the Beverly Hillbillies going on this little trip, because we had stopped at Walmart and we had all our bags of stuff that we were going to eat for the month. We actually had our little Yorkie dog with us that we took. We had our little papers so she could cross the border, and they never even asked for her papers. And we had paid like $200 to get our papers. I'm still upset about that. But anyway, like I look at that guard, you were going to look at her papers because we paid for these papers. Anyway, we get up to the where we're supposed to stay, and I had rented for the week a little 350 square foot room. Like, I think it was like they called it like a 1-bedroom studio. It was a bedroom in it, but it really wasn't separated by a wall. And all the way up, the kids had talked about, well, who's going to get to be in the bedroom? Who's going to be at the bedroom? And Linda and I are like silent, because we think, well, we're going to be in the bedroom, of course, and because the room is not really important, because what we're going to be is outside, because that's what you tell your kids when you're in a cheap room, and you make the room look light because, hey, we're not going to be in the room all week long. And that's what we told them. Well, we get up there to the lodge where it is, and you could tell when you drove up it was under construction, and scaffolding everywhere. And on the door where we were going to check in was a note that said, if you were checking in here, go to another building and check in there. And so we got back in the car and drove, and really all we did was drive like around a corner, because we were on the back side of the village, but we drove to the front side of the village. When we got to the front side of the village, we found where we were supposed to check in, and it was a lobby like Linda and I had really not seen before. It was a beautiful lobby. We check in, the lady says, something happened in the building, I don't remember what, it had to go under construction, so we had to move quite a few of the people, and you were on one of the floors that were affected by that, so we have upgraded you to another room. We're sorry for the inconvenience. And so we thanked them, and she said, you're going to be on the front side of the village instead of the back side, which is going to be good. So they told us where to park. We got back in our car with all of our suitcases, our little dog, all the Walmart bags that we had. And we go and we pull in the garage, and there is a man standing in the parking place where they told us to park, just like this. And we stopped because Linda's like, don't go over there. He's going to kill us. I don't know who he is, but that man will kill us if we go over there. But he was dressed in, I don't know how to describe it. He was like a little butler uniform. I don't know what they wear, a concierge or something. And they could tell we're a little bit nervous. We're kind of sending back over here. He's like motions us to come on. And so I don't know why we decided to go on. I guess the motion made us realize maybe it's not a killer after all. Maybe they belong here. We drive over to where they are. He greets us. He knows our name. I think, how does he know our name? And he says our name. We get out of the car. He shows us where the elevator is to our room, and then we start gathering our stuff together. And he says, no, leave it here. And we're thinking like, no, we want to take it. And he says, no, it's my job. And so we even told him, we said, we got like 20 Walmart bags. That's okay, it's okay. Well, he shows us, and we get in the elevator, and it is a private elevator. And it goes up to the very top floor, and it opens up into a 2,800 square foot penthouse. And there is a wall of windows across the front. And on the two sides, etched in glass, are these huge pine trees and pine cones and animals across the bottom and snowflakes. And Aaron and I, Linda, and you'll have to ask Alana. I don't even know if she was old enough to remember this. We walk over the window and we are just like, oh my, like this could not have happened. This is not us. We look behind us, forget who's going to get what room. There were 4 bedrooms in that place. Each bedroom had their own bathroom. There was a huge fireplace. There was a table that seated 12 people, and there was on the table a huge gift bag. Now, I don't mean like a little gift bag. It was wrapped in cellophane. There was a bottle of wine in this gift bag. There was cheese in this gift bag, and Aaron goes to start to open it, and Linda yells, "Stop! That probably cost $1,000 if you pull that string off of there." And there's a little note on it. We read the note. It was like a gift. It said, "This is a gift for you." We thought it was free. Well, we were too scared. We didn't want to open it. We thought they're going to charge us for everything in there. We know it. Well, the little butler guy comes up to the room with all of our stuff, and we're pulling it in there, and he's looking, he said, "Anything else I can do for you?" And 2 days later, he came every morning. Every morning he showed up. "Can I go get you breakfast? Can I go get you this?" And we thought, he obviously thinks we have more money than what we do. I thought, what does one leave? What kind of tip does one leave for this little guy who keeps coming to our room every single day? Finally, on the second day, he told us, "That gift, you can open that. That's yours. No charge. It's yours." And we thought, wow. And what about our little 350 square foot thing? And all of a sudden I'm thinking, my little 350 square foot thing that I had looked at online, that I was excited about, that I thought, oh, we're going to be there. We're going to be in Whistler. Who cares about the room? All of a sudden, man, we care about the room. The room. It's like, oh, and I think, oh, that little room was just a preview. It was just a little commercial. It was just a tickling of what was about to come. And here you've got Peter, James, and John up on the mountain with Jesus. And they're talking about an exodus, the most epic moment in Jewish history that had happened. And Luke says it was just a preview of the exodus that was about to happen, when God was about to pay the price for the sins of the entire world. Talk about getting people out of bondage. Talk about getting people out of slavery. Talking about getting people who were lost to a saved condition. God was about to do something so big that not even the angels could figure out how it was going to happen. And here Peter, James, and John are getting a front row seat to all this that is going on. And if you're there, What are you thinking? I mean, if I'm there, I want to hang on to every word, and I'm thinking, John, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear what they're talking about? They're talking about Jesus' departure from this world and what that's going to mean to everyone. I would have been like at the door, like, speak up, Moses, say it louder, like we're over here in the bushes hiding, but could you say it? That's not what they did. Reality sets in. Verse 32, Peter and the others had fallen asleep. How do you fall asleep? And the most epic moment of the entire world is going on. How do you fall asleep? This is how it does. Look at the person sitting around you. They may be asleep sometimes. Sometimes I'm up here and I look out and I see people like, I think they're either praying or I'm drifting them off into Never Never Land, one of the two. So before I get too harsh on them, I confess that sometimes I fall asleep too. I confess that sometimes I fall asleep spiritually. Have any of you ever fallen asleep spiritually? Have any other ever just been spiritually tired? I think it can happen in one of two ways. I think like you can be like Peter, James, and John. I mean, they are so much a part of the fight. They are in the fight every day. I mean, they left everything to follow him. They are there. They are warriors standing in the thick of it. And they know how Messiah should act, and they know what Messiah should do. And they got the whole thing figured out. And all of a sudden, when the thing is not going like they thought it was going to go, they begin to spiritually fall asleep, don't they? When they think it's going to be this way, but all of a sudden Jesus goes, no, it's not going to quite be that way. It's going to be this way. The Son of Man must be handed over. He's going to be tried, convicted. He's going to be killed, but on the third day he's going to rise again. When it's going to be like that, I don't know if I just get tired sometimes because, man, the thing I've been fighting for just doesn't seem to be happening. And I know that some of you are there because you have this ministry that's been on your mind and it's been on your heart. And you've been trying to do it and you've been trying to accomplish it, whether it's leading a small group or whether it's like taking a trip somewhere or whatever that ministry might be. It's been on your heart, but somehow right now it's not happening exactly the way you thought it would, and you get tired, don't you? And sometimes spiritually we just kind of fall asleep. And the other way we spiritually fall asleep sometimes is kind of weird way to say it, but it's that we never really spiritually woke up. Have you known those people? They come and they sit every week and they leave, but nothing really changes. I mean, it looks like they're there, their body is there, but spiritually, they're just kind of, they never got out of where they are. It's a kind of spiritually being tired because you never really woke up. And you know, regardless of what end you fall out on, regardless of if you fall out on the end of, man, I've tried so hard and it's just not working and I'm tired, or whether you're on this end and you're just spiritually tired or you're spiritually asleep because you never really spiritually woke up, you never had that aha moment, there's something bigger than me, there's something going on. Regardless of where you fall out on that, you're tired, but you're not too tired, are you? I mean, you're not too tired to binge watch another season of Netflix of Breaking Bad or Friends or Parks and Recreation. I mean, you were spiritually tired, but maybe not too tired to play another round or get out and go on another trip or maybe to paint my house or go to another game. I mean, not too tired for those things, but way too tired to come in early or get up early and pray for God's kingdom to come into the dark places of this world that it hasn't come yet. Way too tired to get up and pray for people who are lost, people who can't find their way. Way too tired to volunteer for that mission trip, or way too tired, whatever it is. And hey, if that's you, I understand. Could I make a confession that even your pastor, who sometimes tends to be on that, let's go get it, let's go get it. He gets tired sometimes. And would I confess to you that sometimes even your pastor gets on the other end where he busies himself with so many things of the world that really don't matter, that he gets spiritually tired on that way is in. And you can get so busy with the world, not necessarily bad things, but just things that take up your time that you just never really spiritually wake up. And regardless of what end that's on, I go back and I look at this story, and Jesus is talking to Moses and Elijah about his exodus, his departure, his death from this world. And it just reminded me we're all going to die, aren't we? I mean, we're all going to die. Every one of us are going to go out at some point in life. And I think the point that was just jumping out at me in this, if I give in to either one of those two extremes, if I give in to the extreme, well, I'm so tired I want to quit fighting for what I know to be true and want to be right, quit fighting for the group that I want to be a part of or I want to be in, that small group that I want to impact for the kingdom of God, or if I'm on this end and I spiritually wake up, I realize something. People in both groups, wherever I fall out, we're all going to die. But we're not going to die like the heroes in Patriot died. We're not going to die like the heroes in Braveheart, like the gladiators who went out in the Colosseum. I'm not going to die like the Christians in Rome died. I'm not going to die like those heroes of faith in Hebrews chapter 11. I'm not going to die like Moses getting 2 million people into the promised land. I'm not going to die like Gideon who goes from 10,000 men to 300 men and then whoops the Midianites and sends them out. I'm not going to die like those people that the Hebrew writer talks about, Barak and Samson and David and Samuel. I'm not going to die by being tortured or persecuted or beaten or stoned or mistreated, which maybe is the only thing on the list that I might be a little bit happy about. He says, you're not going to die on the battlefield fighting for something you knew was worth dying for. You won't die like the mighty men of David, fighting for their families and fighting for their homeland and fighting for their kings. You'll die laying down in some easy chair with a remote in your hand is how you die. If you ever get on one of those two extremes and you don't wake up, you'll die inside. You'll die thinking on this end that what I needed to do was make another dollar, make another conquest, get another job, go up another rung in the ladder, build a bigger house, take a cruise on the Mediterranean. You'll be witnesses, he says, to the greatest event in all of history. And you'll miss it because you'll be asleep to it. And if we're not careful, we'll die to so many things that are going to die with us. I spoke to a young lady just this past week. Saw her in a restaurant that we were in. And I've known this young lady for quite a while now. And I knew her grandparents. And she was talking to me about after her grandparents had passed, and her grandparents were fairly wealthy people, good people, wealthy people. But she said, I had this wake-up moment in my life when I sat in their living room with my mom and our aunts and my uncles, and we were going through their stuff. And she said, all the stuff that we had worked for, all the stuff that we thought were important, we made 3 piles of it. She said there was the throwaway pile. She said there was the give it away pile. And then she says there was the keep it pile. And she said the thing that kept running through my mind over and over and over was the keep it pile was so small. Out of all the piles, of all the stuff that we valued, the keep it pile was so small. And there's all their stuff. And spiritually, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to die spiritually asleep. I don't want to be alive in the most epic moment in all of history and be found sleeping through it. I tell you, I know this, I'm going to die. But when I die, I want to go out fighting like the mighty men of David. I want to be fighting for my family and fighting for something bigger than me. I want to be fighting for the glory of God. And it may not always work out just the way I think it will, but I want to go out fighting for something bigger than I am, having an impact on the kingdom of God. And the only piles that I see in my past are the piles of brokenness from people that we led out of darkness and into the kingdom of light. That's how I want to die. But he says, you got to wake up if you want to die that way. I want to go out. Like in the video we saw from Africa a couple of weeks ago, I want to go out like those nurses sitting on the side of a street. They can't even get to the clinic because they're treating a little boy whose legs are all broken up. I want to die like that. I want to die bringing water to an 80-year-old grandmother. I want to die helping a little girl see again. I want to die showing people that there's a way out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of good. I don't want my exodus from this life to be knowing that, hey, you played one more game of golf, Tom. Hey, you skied one more mountain, one more Whistler trip, one more promotion, one more dollar. I want to go out knowing that heaven's going to be more crowded because I was here. I want to go out like Jesus went out. I looked at just some other translations of that same verse. Here they are. I'll just read them to you. The AMPC version said that Jesus made his exodus realizing something. The CSB version said that Jesus was going out accomplishing something. The CEB version said he was going out achieving something. Isn't that the way you want to go out? Realizing, accomplishing, achieving something bigger than you. And then look, the CEV version said maybe, I love it. He said they appeared, Moses and Elijah with Jesus, they appeared in heavenly glory, and they were talking about all that Jesus' death would mean. They were talking to what Peter and James and John should have been immensely interested in, that the death of Jesus to you is going to mean that you don't have to live in hopelessness. You don't have to live in despair. You don't have to live wondering what's going to happen next or how it's even going to happen. You don't have to worry about all of that, because they're talking about what the end of Jesus' life will mean to the entire world. And it will mean this, that there are people alive for once in their life. It means that you can have a part in it. And I love the part that Jesus, as we're going to see next week, he wakes them up kind of, which means to me that you can be woken up from the sleep that you're in. How do you get woke up? Well, that's where we're going to have to begin next week, because that's where both Matthew and Luke don't miss the story. How can we be woken up? I love the Good News translation. It says it best. It says that they were talking about how Jesus was about to fulfill God's purpose in him. Don't you want to go out like that? Don't you want to go out with Jesus talking about how God fulfilled his purpose in Tom's life, in Dan's life, Jim's life, in your life? My time is up today, but here it is. The greatest moment that the world has seen, and Peter, James, and John slept through it. I don't want to slip through it. Because when I go out, I want to go out impacting the kingdom of God. D.L. Moody was quoted as saying, our greatest fear should not be a failure, but it should be of succeeding at something that in the end doesn't really matter. And maybe Phil Edwards was onto something. Maybe Phil Edwards was onto something spiritually that he didn't even know, that is the cry of every human soul. We need to wake up, because I want to ride a wave of adventure with God. I want to get on the edge of danger with God if that's what it takes. I want to feel the wind of the Holy Spirit at my back and the spray of goodness while I'm living in the land of the living. I want to do something with you as we close today. I'm going to ask you all just to stand with me for a moment. I saw a little while ago a prayer that's called a prayer posture stance. And I'm going to ask you for a moment to get brave, just to get brave, because some of you, like when I tell you what we're going to do, like you're going to go, oh my, I can't believe he's asking me to do that. And I'm just going to ask you, Matt Damon in the movie We Bought a Zoo said all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage to do what I'm going to do. So it may be silly, but what I'm going to do here, there is a form in your bulletin for today that I want you to take home, and I want you to pray this posture prayer this week in private, what we've done in public. So the first thing, I want you to get a stance like this. It's a fighting stance. So hey, like the mighty men of David, like get your fighting stance, your boxing gloves up there. Come on, oh, good job over there. Y'all are getting it. Don't be scared. This is what I want you to do. The words are going to be on the screen. I want you to repeat with me. Father, I confess. My natural posture is to fight for myself, to make something happen. But today I choose to surrender. My life is not my own. I can't, but you can. So I offer my life over to you, God. And I take my hands and I put them out in front of me and I make a fist. And I say, Father, I confess. My natural posture is to take and to keep, but I choose to open my hands. I choose generosity. Freely I have received. Freely I give. It's all yours. And then maybe the posture that each of us are kind of best at is like this, like, that kind of posture. And just a little word of advice. If you ever get on Judge Judy, don't do this because she'll call you down for it. For whatever that was worth. But this is kind of the posture that says, this is me, you're not allowed in. And I say, Father, I confess, my natural posture is to stay in my lane and not worry about the problems. And then I open my hands and I say, but today, Father, I choose a different posture, a posture of mission that says, I'm open to the world. Because of your grace, I'm looking for the lost, the last, the least, the left behind, the prodigals, so I can tell them, please come home. You are welcome here. Father, with our arms still stretched out, would you hear our prayer? Father, would you help us to make a difference? Would you help us, Father, to look for the last, the least, the broken, the left behind, the prodigals? Would you let them to know that they are welcome in your kingdom because you are planning an exodus, Father, for each of us that is like your exodus in so much that, Father, it will bring us into your presence forever and ever and ever. So, Father, I look forward to that moment. And I thank you for that moment 2,000 years ago when your exodus changed the world forever. And I will forever thank you for it because that exodus made me a child of yours. I surrender to you and I thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.